In order to read in fixed width data, the first step is recognizing that you have fixed width data. So if we look at some data right here, we can say maybe these are heights of individuals or test scores or whatever. But we look at it and we see we have some variables where we might be given a code book and it says, here's where your variables are. And we can see that this first variable takes up the first two columns of text. And then there's a skip of one column. Here it's a space, but we're skipping that column. It doesn't contain any data for us. Second variable is the next two columns, so columns 4 and 5. And then we skip 2 columns of data. And then our last variable is right here in columns 8 and 9. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, yes. And so this isn't a uniformly spaced data. We can't just say it's space delimited or comma delimited. We have to read it in as a fixed width data. So what we will be doing is coming over here to R. We'll name it something super creative like df. And we are going to use the function read.fwf. So that is fixed width file, is what that stands for. And we will start out by saying what file we want. You don't have to use the file equals. It works equally well if you just start out with your file path, or if you're in a project, your file name. And so I am in a project, and we can see my data is right over here. And so my file name is data_fw.txt. The next thing that we need to do with this fixed width data is specify what the column widths are. So we will do widths widths equal, and then we need a C in order to kind of collect everything together. And here's where we're going to say, use this many columns, skip this many columns, use this many columns, skip this many columns. If you don't have columns to skip, then you would just continually say, use this many columns, and each time you specified, it would create a new variable. So let's look at this again. So we need 2 columns, we're skipping 1. We need 2 columns, we're skipping 2, and we need 2 columns. So that's relatively easy to remember this time. So we're going to say we need 2 columns, positive 2. We need to skip 1. We need to skip that column of spaces. So we're going to specify that with a -1. We don't need that. We do need the next 2 columns. We don't need the ones after that. And then we're going to end with the 2 columns that we do need. So every time there's a positive value, R will interpret that as, hey, there's a variable here, and it's this many columns. Anytime there's a negative value, it will interpret that as saying, skip these, no variable here. And the last thing we would like to do is give these things some names. Our variables would like some names. So we will do call.names equals, and we're going to gather these together also. And so maybe we'll say height 1, height 2, height 3. So notice how I use quotation marks in order to specify that those are in fact strings. And that is what you need to do. So if we run this, it will run. And then over here we can see, here's our data frame. So if we look at it, and we can pull up our data over here as well, we can see we have our height 1, 2, and 3, and our variables read in. So the biggest trick with reading in fixed width files is first recognizing that you have it, and then using either the codebook or spacing information to delineate what columns are variables and which columns R needs to skip.